The first light of dawn seeped gently into the village, painting the mist a pale silver. Dew clung to the bamboo fence, each droplet trembling under the faintest breath of wind. From somewhere beyond, a rooster's call rolled through the quiet, followed by the faint crackle of someone's cooking fire. In the small yard, Uncle D was already at work, his sleeves rolled above his elbows, revealing arms darkened by years under the sun. With a steady grip, he drew the saw across a thick bamboo pole, the blade singing a soft, rhythmic hiss. The scent of freshly cut bamboo drifted into the cool air, mingling with the damp earth beneath his feet. From the doorway, Quinn stepped out, her shawl loosely draped over her shoulders. She paused for a moment, watching the way the morning light caught the fine mist rising from the grass. "When did you get up?" she asked softly, her voice still wrapped in the quiet of early morning. Uncle D glanced up with a small smile, but his hands never left the saw. "Since the rooster crowed. It's cooler now, better to work before the sun gets too high." The metallic rasp of the saw continued, filling the air between them. From the side of the porch, Maya appeared, clutching BB, the little limping dog, against her chest. Her hair was tousled from sleep, and her eyes were still half closed. She shuffled closer, her small voice breaking the rhythm of the morning. "Are you building the house today, Uncle?" Uncle D straightened slightly, his hands resting on the bamboo. He looked at her with a warmth that seemed to soften the sharp edge of the tool in his grip. "Today, I'm starting with the pillars and beams. A house has to stand firm from its roots." The pale light of dawn had grown warmer now, spilling across the yard and slipping into the open doorway of the small kitchen. Inside, a thin ribbon of steam rose from the rice pot, curling lazily before dissolving into the air. The fragrance of freshly cooked rice mingled with the savory scent of braised fish and the faint green note of boiled garden vegetables. Quinn carried a low wooden tray into the yard, her steps measured so the bowls wouldn't clink. The mist still lingered at the edges of the fence, and the sound of bamboo leaves rustling overhead blended with the steady heartbeat of the village waking up. "Come eat, Uncle," she called gently, setting the tray down on the bamboo mat. "You must be hungry after working so early." Uncle D set the saw aside, the rasp of metal against bamboo fading. He walked to the water jar, dipped the ladle, and poured the cool water over his hands, droplets splashing onto the packed earth at his feet, darkening the dust. "All right," he said with a small smile, shaking the water from his fingers. "Let's eat a little, so I've got the strength to keep going." They sat together around the low tray, the steam from the bowls rising between them like a quiet offering. Maya settled in close to her mother, BB curling into a ball under the table, the dog's nose twitching at the smell of fish. "You should eat more, Uncle," Maya said earnestly, her small hands steadying the edge of a rice bowl as she leaned forward. "You need to be strong to finish the house." Uncle D's face softened as he reached across the tray, placing a plump slice of omelet onto her plate. "If I do what Maya says, I'll be stronger for sure," he replied, his voice warm with quiet amusement. Quinn, who had been watching them, smiled faintly and pushed the rice pot closer to him. "Then you should have some more," she said. "You've worked all morning already." In the soft morning air, their voices blended with the occasional creak of bamboo in the wind, the quiet clink of chopsticks against bowls, and the gentle sigh of a home where the day's work had only just begun. The morning had ripened into full light, the sun now glancing through the gaps in the bamboo fence, scattering patterns of gold across the yard. A faint breeze carried the mingled scents of damp earth and freshly cut bamboo. After breakfast, Quinn stood in the doorway, slipping the leather strap of a woven bamboo pack over her shoulder. In her other hand, she held a curved machete, its blade dulled from years of use but still sharp where it mattered. The soft rustle of palm leaves swaying beyond the yard seemed to call her forward. "I'll head to the forest to collect some dry palm leaves for the roof," she said, her voice calm but with the quiet urgency of someone measuring time against the work ahead. From the corner of the yard, Uncle D looked up from where he was measuring a length of bamboo, resting his foot lightly against it to keep it still, the morning light catching in his hair. "Be careful," he told her. "Pick only the golden dry leaves. The green ones won't last." Maya, still clutching BB, darted forward, her eyes wide with the thrill of an adventure. "Can I go with you, Mama?" Quinn crouched down, adjusting the strap of the pack against her shoulder as she looked into her daughter's face. "Not today," "Stay here and watch over BB for me," she said gently. The little girl hesitated, then nodded, hugging the dog closer. BB's tail thumped lightly against her arm, as if in agreement. Quinn stepped through the gate, the sound of her sandals brushing against the sandy path. Her figure grew smaller with each step, disappearing behind the tall stand of bamboo where the forest began. Back in the yard, the steady rhythm of work resumed. Uncle D's saw sang against the bamboo, each stroke even and deliberate, the scent of fresh shavings sharp and green. Maya sat cross-legged on the wooden porch step, sorting the small offcuts into neat little stacks. BB wandered around the piles, sniffing curiously before settling down in the shade. "Will our new house have a door?" Maya asked suddenly, tilting her head to look at him. Uncle D set down the saw, leaning one elbow against his knee. "Yes," he replied with a hint of a smile, "and even a window, so you can watch the stars at night." Her eyes lit up at the thought, and she looked toward the unfinished frame of their home as if she could already see the stars through it. The sun had climbed high, spilling a fierce golden light over the yard. Heat shimmered faintly above the packed earth, and the bamboo fence threw sharp, narrow shadows across the ground. From somewhere beyond the fields came the steady hum of cicadas, a sound that made the air feel even heavier. Down the path, Quinn appeared, her figure slowly taking shape through the bright haze. The woven bamboo pack on her back was full, palm leaves stacked high, their dry golden edges rustling with each step. Strands of hair clung to her temples, damp with sweat, and the thin cotton of her blouse was darkened where it touched her skin. Uncle D set down his saw and crossed the yard to meet her. He reached up to lift the pack from her shoulders, the leaves crackling softly under his hands. "Enough for the first half of the roof," he said, tilting his head to glance at the load. She straightened, rubbing the stiffness from her shoulder. "I'll go back tomorrow for the rest," she replied, her voice low but steady, already thinking ahead to the next task. They carried the bundle into the shade, the scent of sun-dried palm rising into the warm air. The yard seemed to hold its breath for a moment, as if pausing between the labor of morning and the work still waiting in the afternoon. In the kitchen, the table was set for lunch, steam curling lazily from a clay bowl of sour vegetable soup, its surface dotted with bright herbs. Beside it, a plate of golden omelet gleamed in the light, and a small dish of pickled eggplant gave off a salty, tangy fragrance. Maya clambered onto her seat, her eyes darting between the food and the unfinished frame of bamboo outside. "Will you start building after we eat?" she asked, her voice eager. Uncle D sat down, pouring himself a cup of tea before answering. "Yes," he said with a small smile. "We'll rest for a while, then begin." The meal was quiet, except for the soft clink of chopsticks and the occasional flutter of leaves outside. Afterward, they lingered for a moment in the shade, letting the heat of midday pass before stepping back into the work that awaited them. By the time the shadows began to stretch long across the yard, the heat had softened, the sun dipping toward its slow arc into evening. The light turned honey gold, catching on every joint and curve of the unfinished frame. A breeze moved gently through the bamboo leaves, carrying with it the faint scent of fresh shavings from the morning's work. Uncle D adjusted the brim of his old, sun-bleached hat before gripping the vertical poles. With slow, deliberate steps, he climbed onto the frame, the bamboo creaking softly beneath his weight, each sound blending with the distant murmur of the fields. "Pass me the longest piece of bamboo," he called down, his voice calm but carrying the focus of someone measuring each movement. Below, Quinn stood barefoot on the packed earth, a length of cord looped over her shoulder. She reached for the longest pole leaning against the fence, its surface smooth and cool in her hands. "Careful up there," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly against the sunlight as she tilted her face upward. "Keep close to the crossbeam." Maya stood a few paces back, one hand shading her eyes, the other clutching BB's collar to keep the dog from wandering too close. "You look like a bird sitting up there, Uncle," she called, her voice carrying a mix of wonder and mischief. Uncle D chuckled, kneeling to secure the pole with a practiced knot. "A bird can fly. I'd better hang on tight, or I'll fall right into your vegetable garden." The soft thump of the mallet against bamboo echoed through the yard, mingling with the rustle of leaves overhead. Dust motes swirled lazily in the shafts of sunlight, each strike of the mallet sending a faint vibration through the frame. At the edge of the yard, the pile of palm leaves waited in the shade like a promise. The scent of earth, bamboo, and warm air wrapped around them, the afternoon unfolding in steady, deliberate work. Each knot, each beam, brought the house one step closer to being whole. The sun was sinking lower now, brushing the tops of the bamboo grove with molten light. The air had cooled just enough for the breeze to carry the mingled scents of damp soil and the green sweetness of freshly cut bamboo. Perched on the roof frame, Uncle D tightened the last knot with a firm pull, the rope pressing into his calloused palms. The bamboo gave a low, contented creak, as if settling into its new place. He sat back on his heels for a moment, glancing down at the yard below. "It's a good frame," Quinn called up from the garden, her voice carrying over the quiet clink of her hoe against the earth. She straightened, pushing a loose strand of hair from her cheek with the back of her hand. "Once we get the leaves on, it'll be cool inside." Uncle D shaded his eyes with one hand, looking down at her with a small smile. "And with this garden, we'll have fresh vegetables for Maya before long," he replied, his tone warm but edged with the satisfaction of a day's work nearly done. Quinn's hoe sank into the soil again, turning over clumps of dark, fragrant earth. She knelt to break them apart with her fingers, the dirt soft and cool against her skin. Nearby, Maya crouched next to BB, pointing out a beetle crawling along the furrows. The dog's ears twitched, but he stayed still, his nose twitching at the scent of the ground. From above, the steady sound of bamboo being shifted and adjusted mixed with the quiet rhythm of the hoe's blade against the earth. The colors of the yard deepened, gold fading into amber, then into the first hints of twilight blue. By the time Uncle D climbed down, wiping the sweat from his brow with the edge of his sleeve, the frame of the roof stood complete against the evening sky. The unfinished house caught the last light, each pole glowing softly in the fading sun, as if holding on to the warmth for the night ahead. The day had tilted fully toward evening, the light softening to a deep amber that clung to the edges of the bamboo leaves. In the kitchen, the air was warm with the gentle crackle of the fire. Quinn crouched near the clay stove, feeding in thin sticks of wood one by one. The flame flared briefly, casting flickers of gold across her face. Steam rose from the rice pot, curling into the rafters. The scent of freshly boiled grains mingled with the herbal note of wild vegetables simmering in a clay pot beside it. She stirred the soup slowly, the wooden ladle tapping against the rim in a quiet rhythm. Under her breath, she murmured, almost to herself, "After today, he deserves something good to eat." Outside, the low hum of a motorbike cut through the evening air. At the far end of the village road, Uncle D slowed his old motorbike in front of a small open front shop. The glow from a single hanging bulb revealed rows of golden roast ducks hanging behind the counter, the aroma of seasoned meat and crispy skin spilling out into the warm dusk. The shop owner, a man with a rolled-up sleeve and a cleaver in hand, looked up. "Half a duck for you today, Uncle D?" Uncle D nodded, resting one foot on the ground as the motorbike idled softly. "Yes, and give me a little extra of the thick sauce." The cleaver came down with a confident chop, the meat still sizzling faintly as it was wrapped in brown paper. The heat of it seeped into his palms, the rich scent drifting upward. He imagined Maya's face lighting up and smiled quietly to himself as he tucked the package into the basket at the back of the bike. Back at the house, Maya had traded her dusty clothes for a thin cotton dress. She stood barefoot by the water jar, her hair damp from washing, rubbing it dry with a warm towel. BB circled her legs, sniffing the air. She bent down, cupping her hands in the basin to splash water playfully toward the dog. "Want a bath too, BB?" she teased, her giggle carrying into the warm air. From the kitchen doorway, Quinn called out, her voice gentle but with the firmness of habit, "Maya, finish up before the mosquitoes come." "Yes, Mama. I'll help set the table after," Maya replied, toweling her hair with quick, eager movements. Moments later, the hum of the motorbike returned, growing louder until it stopped at the gate. Maya ran to the yard just as Uncle D swung his leg off the bike, the evening light catching in his smile. "What's in there, Uncle?" "It smells amazing," she asked, pointing to the paper-wrapped bundle. "Knew you'd notice," he said warmly. "Half a roast duck. Tonight, we eat well." From the doorway, Quinn stepped out, wiping her hands on the edge of her apron. The firelight from the kitchen danced behind her, and for a brief moment, the yard felt like the heart of a small, safe world. "You're thoughtful as always," she said softly. "Come in, wash up. We'll eat while it's still hot." The scents of roast duck, warm rice, and fresh herbs mingled in the cooling air, promising a night wrapped in quiet comfort. The kitchen's warm glow spilled into the yard, catching in the rising steam from the dishes laid out on the low wooden table. The rice sat in a clay pot, its lid still trembling faintly with heat. Beside it, the roast duck, sliced into golden pieces, glistened under the light. The sour vegetable soup sent up fragrant curls of steam, carrying the sharp note of herbs. Maya took her place in the middle, her eyes wide and fixed on the roast duck as if she'd never seen anything so grand. She picked up her chopsticks and leaned forward eagerly. "This is delicious, Uncle. You have to eat 2 pieces. "I'll give you some," she said, lifting a small piece toward his bowl. Uncle D chuckled, gently moving her hand toward her own plate instead. "I'll save the best for you, Maya. You eat plenty, so you'll grow strong." From across the table, Quinn watched them with a soft expression. She reached for the rice pot, scooping a generous serving into his bowl. "You should eat more, Uncle. You've been working all day." The room was filled with small sounds. The faint clink of chopsticks against bowls, the rustle of clothing as they leaned in to serve each other, and the occasional low murmur of appreciation. Outside, the night air cooled, bringing with it the chirp of crickets and the distant rustle of bamboo in the breeze. After the meal, Maya gathered the empty bowls and carried them carefully to the water jar outside, BB trotting after her, the sound of his nails tapping lightly against the wooden porch. Soon, they were both in the yard, chasing the flicker of fireflies that floated like tiny lanterns in the dark. "Don't catch them, BB," Maya whispered, laughing as she waved her hands gently to let one fly away. Inside, the house was quieter now. Quinn and Uncle D sat facing each other at the low table, an old clay teapot between them. The fire in the stove had burned low, leaving only the soft glow of embers. Quinn poured the tea slowly, her hand steady, but her gaze lowered to the steam rising from the cup. "Thank you, Uncle. If it weren't for you, I don't know how we would have managed." He shook his head, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. "I'm doing this because I want to. I want you and Maya to have a place that feels safe, feels like home." Her eyes lifted to meet his, just for a moment. "Home. It's not just walls and a roof." He smiled, his voice gentle but sure. "You're right. Home is where you feel warm inside, no matter what's happening outside." A quiet pause settled between them. The night sounds drifted in from the yard, Maya's laughter, the soft thump of BB's paws, the steady chorus of crickets. Uncle D set his cup down, his gaze shifting toward the half-built frame outside, silhouetted against the night sky. "Tomorrow, we'll put the roof on. Once that's done, it'll really start to feel like a house." Quinn nodded slowly. "I'll wake up early to help." Their eyes held each other's for a brief moment, and in that silence, the warmth between them was as steady and sure as the frame waiting in the yard.